Good to have you with us. We begin with leaked documents revealed how some of the UK's best-known banks have allowed criminals, money launderers and sanctioned Russians to move dirty money around the world. The secret banking reports also show how major banks have failed to stop crime when they suspect it. They show that London is a hub for money laundering, with billions of dollars of suspected dirty money moving through the financial system. The documents, known as the FinCEN files, were leaked to BuzzFeed News and shared with the BBC by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Andy Verity reports.
In this unprecedented leak, thousands of reports of suspicious activity filed by banks to alert US authorities were leaked to BuzzFeed News and passed to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and BBC Panorama. They reveal some of the international banking system's most closely guarded secrets. In one example, a payment of $8 million flagged as suspicious was sent to a Russian businessman and former minister living in Britain, Vladimir Chernukhin, in 2016. It initially came from this man, Suleiman Kerimov, a billionaire ally of President Putin. In 2018, he was sanctioned by the US, who were targeting those they said played a key role in advancing Russia's malign activities. Mr. Chernukhin's wife, Lyubov Chernukhin, has become famous for donating large sums to the Conservative Party in exchange for tennis matches with David Cameron and Boris Johnson, and paying £135,000 for a night out with Theresa May. In total, she's donated £1.7 million, most of it since her husband received the $8 million from Kerimov.
The Chernukhins, pleasant people though they may be, are not fit and proper people to make donations to a British political party. And it looks and feels and is really troubling if you see that people are paying money into the Conservative Party coffers and getting this level of access and therefore presumably influence as a result.
The Conservative Party said British Russians have a democratic right to donate to a political party. The Chernukhin's lawyers say Mrs. Chernukhin never received money deriving from Mr. Kerimov, and Mr. Kerimov says he's had no dealings with Mrs. Chernukhin, but neither disputed the $8 million payment to her husband. Andy Verity, BBC News.
Well, Grant Newsham advises companies and governments on the business risks posed by organised crime and money laundering. I asked him for his reaction to the news of these leaked documents.
Well, I wasn't surprised, and I don't think that anyone who follows the issues really is surprised by anything that they revealed. This has been a long-standing problem in the financial industry around the world, including London, the US. So this really is nothing new. You really have some structural problems that need to be addressed before there's any real progress made on this.
In terms of London being a hub for money laundering, your views and thoughts on that, and what this means going forward for London?
Well, it's been a long time since London has had a reputation really for anything goes. Anybody's welcome, no matter who they are, as long as they've got money. You'll recall after the Malaysian airliner was shot down over Ukraine a while back, there was actually a quote from a banker in the city. And his quote, and this was after there was talk about putting sanctions on the Russians. And his comment was, "But what will happen to their money?" And that has really typified how things have worked. What you have is banks that don't really want, well, there's a fundamental problem in the banks, is that's the front office people. For them, business equals bonus. If you're the people who are trying to keep bad customers, keep criminal money out of your bank, you have a completely different objective, and that is to prevent business, to turn down customers. So you can see the tension. And governments have something similar. Most governments don't really want criminal money in their financial systems, but at the same time, the banks that handle this money are big campaign donors. They have a lot of influence. And if a government actually someday pulls a banking license or puts a CEO in prison or requires him to pay fines out of his own funds, that is going to roil the entire economy. So you can see there's tension at both government and in the banking level. And it creates a problem that's been long-standing. How you actually deal with it, I'd say probably the best thing that a government could do is to make a CEO pay $1 billion out of his own resources and perhaps even put somebody in prison and put one of these big banks out of business.
Do you think that will ever happen?
No, I really don't. I'm not being cynical or glib, but there's been so many opportunities in the last 15, 20 years to really hammer some of these respected banks and send a message. And that really is the only thing I think that will work. It hasn't been done. But I do want to stress that the people on the front line in the institutions trying to keep the banks clean, they're doing their best. But they're not always getting the support they need. And often what financial institutions do is almost the equivalent of putting a scarecrow in a field, saying, well, we do a lot of things, we have a lot of people, we spend a lot of money on know your customer. And it's really intended to have an excuse to keep the regulators at bay. But there are some very clean institutions that see making a serious, diligent effort to turn down people that you shouldn't do business with as a competitive advantage. And as one that's the lead top of a very prominent institution told me when I asked him, do you mind giving up business? He said, no, because people see what kind of company we are and we get more business as a result.
So that is Grant Newsom, who I spoke to earlier, just to say that, of course, some banks, their stocks trade in Asia, in Hong Kong, notably HSBC. And HSBC shares today have been down by nearly 3% earlier today. That's the lowest level for HSBC shares in some 25 years. Also, Hong Kong listed shares of Standard Chartered down today by over 2.5%.